Welcome back, everyone. We are in the final stretch of today's program. In our 2024 conference feedback, many families identified speech and communication as important topics they wanted to learn more about. In response, our next session will explore the communication challenges experienced by individuals with TANGO2, as well as practical strategies, resources, and reasons for hope. Joining us for this discussion are TANGO2 parents, who I have learned a lot from over the years, Laura Moore, Amy Clay, and Kasia Morris, along with Aaron Kaiser, a speech-language pathologist with more than 20 years of experience supporting individuals with complex communication needs, including those with autism, intellectual disabilities, and genetic disorders. Aaron specializes in multimodal communication approaches, comprehensive AAC evaluations, and caregiver and provider training. Inspired by a connection to the TANGO2 community early in her career, Aaron has become a passionate advocate for ensuring every individual has a voice and the tools to communicate effectively. She works to educate families, educators, and communities about multimodal communication and the importance of embracing all forms of communication. Please join me in welcoming Aaron Kaiser and our panelists to the stage.
Hi. How's everybody doing? I know it's been a long day. It has. But I promise this one is chock full of good information, in the most practical ways, because communication is one of those things that impacts everyone. So again, my name is Aaron Kaiser. I am a school-based speech and language pathologist from Colchester, Connecticut, which is a tiny little town. I'm joining you from the land of Yukon basketball and New Haven style pizza. And yes, it matters. I want to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to Kasia and Mike and their amazing team for inviting me to share my love and passion for all things communication with you today. I had to do the math last night and figure out that I've actually known the Morris family for 18 years. I had the pleasure of working with Ryan when he was in preschool and early in elementary school prior to his diagnosis. And at that time, we didn't know what TANGO2 was. All I know was that I was working with a student that had significant speech and motor difficulties, and there was no rhyme or reason at that time as to the why. I was charged with treating the child that I had in front of me and supporting him and his family and all of the other educators that worked with Ryan through that experience. And it was a true privilege, honestly. The Morris family is one of the most amazing advocating families I've ever met. And, now as a parent, I still see them, when I go to meetings for my own children, and the 10 toes down advocacy that they had for their son way back then, and not knowing the whys behind it. It was just a truly incredible experience and my privilege to know them. So thank you to Kasia and Mike. Learning to meet Ryan's needs and support him, and the team working with him was just the beginning of a career in supporting and advocating for students with a variety of disabilities. Speech and language pathology has to be one of the most misunderstood professions, especially in the sense of what disorders and differences are part of the spectrum of what we work with. In our professional capacity, we are trained to prevent, assess, diagnose, and treat a variety of diagnoses and differences. In the medical setting, we treat patients with cognitive communication impairments, feeding and swallowing difficulties, amongst others. In the educational setting, we treat children with speech sound or articulation disorders, overall receptive and expressive language development, literacy, and augmentative or alternative communication tools. We have the privilege of working with individuals in a variety of settings and include beginning of life as well as end of life care. You might be wondering what the differences between receptive and expressive language are. We can consider receptive language skills to be the language input we receive from our environment. Receptive language skills are the first that we develop as infants and are generally considered easier to develop than expressive language. Receptive language skills include listening, reading, as well as understanding the meaning of gestures. Facial expressions and body language are also included in that. Expressive language can be considered the output of communication skills. It is developed after receptive language and is considered a more difficult skill to develop overall. Expressive language skills include speaking and writing and includes the use of grammar. So for those of us that are parents, we see these differences in action in our own infants. Infants hear oral language for about 12 months before we ever expect to hear first words out of them, which really highlights that receptive language is the foundation for all future learning. The most recent research from Dr. Miyake and her team and the lived experiences of individuals and families impacted by TANGO2 indicate that speech and language differences are nearly universal in this population. What we see in children who present with TANGO2 are primarily neurological symptoms that include dysarthria and ataxia. I know there's a lot of big terms here, and some of us might be familiar and some of us not. So dysarthria is a motor speech disorder that weakens or paralyzes the muscles used for speaking. Listeners may perceive dysarthric speech to be slurred, slow, and sometimes very effortful. Ataxia is the poor coordination for voluntary muscle movements, including those we use in oral speech. As part of the motor difficulties that are experienced for someone with TANGO2, we also see difficulty with saliva control. The research is showing us that the onset of TANGO2 symptoms typically starts between the ages of 1 and 3, which indicates that a school-based speech pathologist, someone like me, is one of the first interventionists that these children see. In the educational setting, a speech pathologist provides a wealth of information about speech delays, motor speech disorders, and other related developmental and cognitive delays with the team of professionals that works with each child. Motor speech disorders are caused by the neurological differences we see as a result of deficits in motor control and coordination, such as the impacts from dysarthria and ataxia. There are several common treatment approaches for motor speech disorders, some that focus on the coordination, rate, and sequencing of oral motor movements, some that focus on the physical posture, breath support, and loudness. There are other approaches such as alternative and augmentative communication to help support all forms of communication, which should always be considered as valid. Speech-language treatment is highly customized to each individual's needs and can change over time, which is important to note, especially for individuals that may experience an increase in TANGO2 spells or metabolic crisis.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Bergstrom. I am a speech-language pathologist and faculty member in the speech-language pathology program, and it's Tech Tuesday. What I'm going to talk about is AAC, otherwise known as augmentative and alternative communication. So AAC is tools and strategies that we use for patients that are not able to use motoric speech or mouth speech reliably to communicate all of their wants and needs and thoughts. We have low tech, which can be choice boards, or we have something called a communication board that has pictures and symbols and an alphabet. We also have mid-tech options, which are battery operated, generally have recorded voices, not a lot of capabilities. I'm hungry. And then we have high-tech options. So today I'm going to introduce AAC apps. So there's hundreds and hundreds of AAC apps out there. This is one of my favorites, which is Word Power. And this has thousands of words in it, so much capability, and you can say whatever you want to say using this device. So I can tell you,
my name is Jen.
So I'm able to communicate a whole host of things just using this technology, and that's AAC.
Sorry, that video started a little sooner than I was ready for, but what a great introduction. I love being a speech pathologist, and AAC is absolutely my passion area. Difficulties with communication skills should never be the reason to overlook another human. Non-speaking, minimally speaking, or those experiencing motor speech deficits does not mean non-thinking. Communication is a basic human right and should be at the forefront of all considerations for individuals with TANGO2. As a society, we have incorrectly placed a higher value and worth on the development and ability to orally speak. Individuals with TANGO2 may not have consistent access to the motor skills necessary to produce oral speech, and it may also come at a higher energy cost to produce that oral speech. And it's important to know that there are other communication options that extend far beyond oral speech. Alternative and augmentative communication refers to a set of tools, systems, and strategies that are individually designed to support, or in some instances entirely replace, communication, depending on the individual. And you might be wondering what kinds of individuals benefit from using AAC, and the truth is, everyone. We all use technology in our everyday lives, and we use technology as a tool in our toolbox to improve our quality of life. I mean, talk to my husband, our family life would cease to exist without our shared Google Calendar, and I'm sure you all can understand that, and just another tool that has advanced our lives in that way. And similarly, we have similar technology in speech and language. The AAC can improve the quality of life for those with communication challenges by increasing social interactions, independence, and participation in work, education, and in the community. So these are some examples of what would be considered some low-tech systems. On the left, you'll see some pictures of, at the top, that is a core board, and that includes words within the English language that carry the most meaning and get you the most bang for your buck, basically. And most of it is actions: eat, go, stop, those sorts of words, which really help someone to get their message across quickly, and when you might not necessarily expect it. The lower one is called an interactive communication board, and this is fashioned after one of the communication apps. This is just the paper version of that. And so the benefit of using these low-tech systems is that they don't fail, because there's no battery, there's no charge. It is always available, easy to take with you everywhere you go. Mid-tech refers to battery-operated devices. So the one that is handheld above, there are 6 options for these static buttons that communicate any number of messages. It is customizable for what that individual needs. So it gives digitized speech, those messages that are recorded by the user themselves or a caregiver if the user is unable to produce speech on their own. The static displays means it doesn't move. So for those with motoric challenges, it is easy because those buttons never move. And so when you're learning a motor pattern, that is very helpful, as we can all commiserate if you've ever deleted an app off of your phone and it shifts all of the other app buttons on your phone. Your motor pattern wants to go back to where you last saw it every time. It's the same idea with any of the communication apps. So this is a good tool for those that need that motor support. And they are cost effective, in that they are generally between $100 to $500, which I know is still expensive, but in the world of assistive technology, that is one of the more reasonable costs. Now we get to the high-tech systems, and this is one of my true loves, of course, and this is the electronic speech-generating devices that enable individuals with complex communication needs to express themselves. So the speech-generating device, most of them look like an iPad at a basic level, and they include the apps and software for communication specifically, which are on it. There are other additional access methods that are important to note, and that there are, for those that are fully paralyzed, let's say, that there are eye tracking methods for communication, head tracking switches, and even joysticks. I have a student in Colchester who now plays video games with her peers because she has a joystick that is accessible for her, hooked up through her communication device, but also to the video gaming system itself. And so how awesome is that, that she can do everything that her peers are doing just through the advent of assistive technology. So part of the high-tech system should require a certified speech-language pathologist to help assess and personalize the recommendations for each child. As I've said, it can be complicated, especially if you're someone that requires a high level of motor support. We want to be mindful of the apps that we would choose, in the sense that we don't want to keep moving buttons around. We want them to stay to support that motor plan, especially if you're someone who will have inconsistent access to those motor skills over time. So, one of the coolest things that has come about in the last few years is the idea of voice preservation. And there are two modes of that, one of them being voice banking and one of them being message banking. So the voice banking includes the ability to record your own synthetic voice. So there are predetermined scripts that you can read a series of words, a series of sentences, and the technology recognizes your unique vocal traits, your pitch, your cadence, and creates basically a synthetic version of you, which is very cool. There's also message banking, where we can record whole chunks of speech, which can be used later and embedded within any AAC device, which allows the person to retain their identity, which I think is so, so important. You know, as I mentioned before, not being able to communicate for any number of reasons doesn't mean not thinking. And so we want to be able to provide that access to everyone at any time and have it be as flexible as that person needs. So voice banking allows us to provide that access to their identity and their voice whenever they need it, including those periods of metabolic crisis. The message banking allows us to pre-record those messages with things that we use a lot or have high emotion attached to them, like "I love you." You know, somebody wants to be able to communicate those emotions at any time, not just when they're in a quote-unquote healthy period. So these are some examples of the support organizations that we use. Those are up on the left. Some of them are for those in the United States. I've tried to add as many as I can for international resources. I'm going to choose to focus on children today because I think that that's where most of us are right now. And I would say that the Voice Keeper for Kids is one of those resources. It is a voice recording that you can make in about 10 minutes. It has a simplified interface, which makes it easier for families to use, and also allows for donation of voice from siblings and parents, which I also think is cool. So I wanted to share some examples of what AAC looks like in the wild for both an adult user and a child user, and those are some of those examples here. Ooh, uh-oh.
My name is Ben. I was born with CP. I don't let my CP or not being able to speak stop me to do anything that I want to achieve.
You love me. You know what you're trying to say? I know you do. Yeah. How many we got padding up? We've got enough padding up. Go and stick some pads on.
did you want to show me?
All right. So I know you've done a lot of work on cost savings for if people switch to the curbside garden when service overtaking it to HWRC.
This is me, 6 years old. I went buying sweets using my second AAC device. 10 years ago, for speaking, I switched to an app on my iPhone.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm decent. Yeah, all good. How are you?
First I was using the symbols with text. Later I switched to the text-only version. Just for fun I use an Australian accent. However, mostly I show people my screen, without using the voice. It feels more like me. I like playing pool with my mate Ryan. Just like me, Ryan has sick hair.
Blue? No, isn't it blue? No. I planned that. That's not blue. No, that's not blue. I see Ben as a inspiration to me, and I look up to him quite a bit. It's amazing how he copes. 2 years ago, he went to Australia to see his friend, and I know the first time I've seen it, he wouldn't have done that at all. It's like me. I mean, I'm proud that I know him.
Okay. I was able to pause that one finally. But that is an example of an adult user. And I think it's pretty incredible that he has sort of created this around his identity. And if you caught that you can put in different accents. And so I will give a personal example. I have a nephew that is autistic and he communicates using an AAC device. And my sister puts him on a British accent because they love it and they think it's fun. And why not? It gives you all the flexibility in the world to be whoever you want in that moment. And that can change day to day too, but just another cool feature of AAC. And then the last video right here is of a young child who also uses AAC. I'm having a hard time getting this to play. Okay.
The moment that Casey started to learn language through picture communication at 20 months old with a picture board, she learned the pictures so fast that we were printing and laminating almost nightly to add more pictures. So we ended up going to high-tech AAC device pretty early on.
Which color should we do the tree? Green. Yay!
Green what?
Pie.
I think having access to communication early for her has reduced the chance of frustration and behaviors replacing communication. Having access to a way to communicate with the world is super important for anybody.
Okay, 1 more minute with the tablet and then we can swing, okay?
You know, she's a pretty chill kid. She's happy as long as she can get her point across. She's still a typical 7-year-old in the fact that if she doesn't get what she wants, she gets upset. But I think it's not because of communication, and that's what's really important to us.
You want to swing?
Do you want some music?
So that was another prime example of a young child using AAC. And I'm sure as families, many of you can understand and commiserate with when your child is unable to communicate with you and you need any strategy in your toolbox at that time to help, because not being able to communicate is one of the most frustrating things I could possibly imagine. To be misunderstood and not get your point across, your wants and needs met, to be able to socially engage and connect with the world is just so super important, and everyone deserves that. So that is something that AAC provides to people who need to use it. So here is an example of the major dedicated AAC manufacturers in the United States, as well as support and funding organizations over on the right. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. It's really meant to just be resources for you that you can grab when you need. I will say that I am a proponent of insurance-funded devices through your health insurance when possible. You know, as we mentioned before, technology failed. The irony was thick on that one. All right. But the technology will fail. It will break, and we need to have backup modes of communication. And oftentimes, when children are frustrated, they will break their communication devices because it is the first thing that we provide to them. That we want them to tell us the whys behind why they're upset. In that moment, it's perceived as another demand, and they want nothing of that. And so it is not uncommon for the AAC devices to become broken when they're thrown, sat on, misplaced, all of that. And because they are insurance funded, they are considered durable medical equipment and will be replaced at no cost to the family. So that is why I am a proponent of the insurance funded devices. In terms of finding speech-language pathologists, the professional organizations on the left, the American Speech-Language Hearing Association, has the ASHA Pro Find. There's also ISAC, the International Society of Augmentative and Alternative Communication. There is the United States version of that. And then there's another organization through Adventures in Speech Pathology where you can find other SLP associations from around the world and has an international directory of speech-language pathologists. So that would be an excellent tool if that's something that you need as well. In terms of implementation and how you can get access to some of those pre-manufactured materials, especially the low-tech ones, those core boards, those interactive communication books, you can find them very often on Project Core, as well as the AAC Learning Center. These are all websites that are available internationally, and a lot of them also have the ability to translate given whichever language you need. So communication is a fundamental human right, and I hope that's what you've heard from me today. And while TANGO2 does present unique challenges, the rapid advancement in AAC technology in different specialized motor speech treatments really does offer every individual the opportunity to share their voice, their thoughts, and their hopes and dreams with the world. You know, as we saw in those videos, it is entirely possible to lead a fulfilling life, both from an education perspective, future employment, within your community, and it's all possible when we provide access to communication and really putting the emphasis on all forms of communication are valid, not just learning to orally speak. But together, through this early intervention and these support networks, we can empower every TANGO2 warrior and families to lead a life of connection and expression. So thank you for having me. I have the pleasure of introducing Laura Moore. And Laura wears many hats, as most moms do. She is the mother of 3 children, including her youngest daughter, Ellie, who was diagnosed with TANGO2 Deficiency Disorder in 2017. A dedicated homeschool parent and caregiver, Laura balances her family's needs with her role as financial director for the city of Tahoka, Texas. Laura holds a Bachelor of Science in Accounting Control Systems and a Bachelor of Arts in Interior Design from the University of North Texas. She and her husband Blake have been married for 20 years, and they live in Littlefield, Texas with their 3 children, Denton, Reese, and Ellie. So please welcome Laura Moore. And the technology will not break for her now.
I am a TANGO2 parent.
Hello, my name is Laura Moore, and I'm a TANGO2 parent. And today I am actually, thank you for being here, actually, coming back. If you're anything like me, you've probably tried everything to help your child communicate. Give me a second to let my nerves settle. Okay. Different therapies, different tools, different strategies, different hopes. Speech is hard, not just the act of speaking, but the emotional weight of communication, and it shapes our relationships, our behavior, our ability to express our needs and wants, and our ability to connect with the world itself. Our family's journey with communication has been long, winding, and full of pivots. And today I want to share that journey with you, not because we did it perfectly, but because I wish someone had shared it with me when we were starting out. So I hope you get something from this. When Eleanor was very young, under 3, we were already in speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy, and even then we accepted every form of communication she offered, whether it was body language, sounds, facial expressions, attempts at signs, anything that showed intention. We weren't looking for correctness, we were looking for the connection. We used a little bit of sign language like milk, more, thank you, please, please, and sorry. She didn't always use them, but she understood them, and that's what mattered. Around age 3, we moved into different picture systems like PECS and POD, as Aaron had showed us some examples of, all low-tech options with pictures. Like here's a waterproof display board, touching of different images. I'm sure many of you have seen and been exposed to much of this, but dexterity was hard, and following strict protocols of our therapist was hard, and sometimes the system didn't honor her attempts unless they were a perfect continuation of pulling and placing, which can be very frustrating. But we believed attempts mattered, and pointing mattered, and our effort mattered, and her effort mattered, so we kept going. Around 4.5, after she had a metabolic crisis, she lost everything that she had worked so hard for, and we were starting back over at square one. At that point, we were introduced to a high-tech augmentative and alternative communication, an AAC device, similar to what Aaron and similar to what you just saw me use. Okay. And that changed everything for us. We didn't stop verbal speech therapy at all. AAC was never a replacement. It was an addition. It was a bridge, a way for her to have a voice people could finally hear. And we paired AAC with visual schedules, with our books, vocabulary work, and comprehension activities. We tried to use the same symbols across different tools so her world would feel consistent. And then we joined an AAC group once a week for about 10 weeks each year. Kids and graduate students of a speech therapy program shared activities of core words, and it was the first time Ellie was surrounded by people who communicated the way she did. The high-tech AAC we used was LAMP. It's called Language Acquisition Through Motor Planning. The beauty of LAMP is the buttons never move. It's like learning a keyboard, just like you do when you text. Your fingers remember where the words live. It also has a full English grammar system, not just needs and wants, but articles, conjunctions, adjectives, everything needed to build real sentences. But here's the shift that surprised me the most. Typical kids expand vocabulary by learning new words, dinosaur names, and animal species, and it gets further and further in detail. AAC kids often expand by learning to describe with the words they already have. Instead of brontosaurus, I don't know if that's still a scientific word used anymore. It might be outdated. But instead of brontosaurus, you get green, large, tail, tall neck. And you know what? That's communication, and that's an expression, and that's language. And it changed the way I thought about teaching vocabulary. It wasn't about collecting words. It was about expanding the expression that she provided. One of the biggest lessons I learned was, why would she use it if we weren't using it? Modeling became essential. Not perfect modeling, just consistent, intentional modeling, and we practiced it in controlled environments. Potty time when she was little, car rides, waiting rooms, which we've all experienced. Those little pockets of time where nothing else was happening. I wasn't a therapist. I'm still not. I wasn't an expert. I'm still not. But I was a lead learner, learning the language right alongside my child. We used an AAC language lab, which was an online resource to teach core vocabulary. We practiced presuming competence, believing that every button pressed had a meaning. If she hit dog when we were asking about ice cream, we didn't correct her. We responded, dog? Woof, woof, you're thinking about dogs now? Or what kind of ice cream is that, dogs? Because every response was a teaching moment. It was not a correction. We used early readers that you see with the little books that only has a few pages, but those key core words were consistent in building a language base and learning where they were on her keyboard with a repetitive core vocabulary. We use the expanding expression tool that is a sing-song tool. I'll show you real quick what it is, just so you don't think I'm crazy. That's okay, I think. But here's the visual representation. Okay, you see it? Now it's green group, blue do. What does it look like? What is it made of? Pink parts, white where? What else do you know? It helps your child expand what they can express about anything. My kids loved it. And when I say my kids, I mean all three. And it helped all of us find new words together and explore the new language that Eleanor was given on her AAC device. If you want to know more about that, just come find me later. Sometimes we go into the store with one goal: practice 2 or 3 core words, not shopping, just practicing. Describe something, find something, use a word, fill the motor plan, and you can only control what you can control. But those little moments, they added up. And as she grew, especially when we started homeschooling, Eleanor became more verbal. We honored that and we celebrated it. But we never stopped speech therapy and we never stopped using AAC. If she said cookie, clearly, we didn't force her to use her device, but we couldn't, but if we couldn't understand her, AAC was there. It was a bridge. Same with sign, right? Everything's a bridge, not a barrier, and you move forward. Around age 12 or 13, whoops, I may have gone back too soon, sign language actually came back full circle into her life, and she loves it now. She's been working on it for about a year now. Her vocabulary is bigger than mine. Her signs aren't always perfect in dexterity, but they're hers, and it's become a hobby, it's become a joy, and a skill set she may rely on someday. This year, AAC returned again. This time, it's on her cell phone. Texting is a huge part of teenage life, but verbal to text is inconsistent for her, and spelling is extremely hard, even with the word prediction. With AAC on her cell phone now, she can type full sentences, she can then hear them before sending them, and she can communicate clearly and confidently. We have boundaries, of course, but I know it takes years to build independence, and if I want her to text safely and independently within 3 years, we have to build those skills now. And here's the part that makes me emotional. That little AAC group she joined so many years ago. The professor who ran it now takes grad students into almost every public school across Lubbock, Texas. Multiple schools now have high-tech AAC devices because of that tiny group that started years ago. Parents I've met from have started their own journeys because of our conversations we've had. You never know where the ripples will land. Communication is a lifelong journey. Tools change, needs change, and kids grow, and we grow with them. If there's one message I want to leave with you today, it's stay open, stay flexible, stay hopeful, and honor every attempt your child makes to connect with you. Thank you. I have the honor of introducing Amy Clay. She currently resides in Rochester, New York, with her husband Stan, daughter Katie, and dog Cody. She serves as a TANGO2 Research Foundation Regional Coordinator and actively participates in the outreach and fundraising committees. Professionally, she's an IT director for the Catholic Health System and also serves as a board member and treasurer for the Rochester Special Hockey Ice Skates. In her spare time, she supports her daughter DJ endeavors as a chauffeur and groupie for DJ Ice Cat. Let's welcome Amy to the podium.
Thanks, Laura. Yes, I am a groupie. I have to use my muscles whenever my daughter goes out and does her DJ stuff. So my journey, my talk is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's journey is different, and all of this is from our perspective, my perspective. Obviously, I'm not a clinician, I'm a mom, I'm not a teacher. Take what you want with what I'm saying and do with it what you want. But here's our story. We've not had a lot of consistency in schools, clinicians that we've seen. So I'm going to start with kind of our physical journey as well as Katie's TANGO2 journey. So Kate was born in Buffalo, New York in 2003, where she had all of those random intermittent, those are my words for all those episodes that the TANGO2 kids have, including speech. Not so much when she was young. A lot of it was more physical, walking and hands, but certainly had a number of times where speech was also an issue. In 2012, we moved to Reno, Nevada, which for Kate was, well, for all of us, was probably the worst time in her life. Laura, you started me. Kate had her metabolic crisis in Reno. Her speech really deteriorated at that point in time and never really recovered. The majority of her other motor skills from her crisis pretty much did go back to baseline. But speech didn't seem to do well and just never came back. In Reno, before we moved, the schools, there's no one here from Nevada, is there? Schools in Nevada, from a parent's perspective, a kid with special needs was very poor. The speech teacher, air quotes, mentioned, she's got some speech problems. It seems like air is escaping out of her nose. We'll continue with speech. We're like, okay. No one else at this point had ever said anything to us about her speech. None of the physicians that we had seen, many, which we had seen over the years. But when we moved to Reno, it was mentioned again. And we're like, okay. Still don't know much about it. Reno, when we moved to Phoenix, is actually when we got our diagnosis in 2016. At that point in time, we had already started giving Katie multivitamins. All of that other stuff that had happened to her, all those random intermittent episodes, had really gone away, knock on wood. They are continued to be away. Again, speech continued to be an issue. It wasn't until we moved back to Rochester, New York, where the speech pathologist in the school district actually mentioned VPI to us and said, you need to go get this checked out. So we're like, okay, well, tell us more. What does this mean, et cetera? She was great. She, explained it to us. She said, if we don't do anything about it, it probably won't get any better. So here was our journey post that. So what is VPI? I'm going to put it in my terms because I'm not a clinician. So it is when air escapes out your nose, when you speak, your throat basically closes up and blocks it. There's specific letters that are really impacted by this issue. And it's just not muscular, but you could have obviously structural or neurological, I guess, are the causes from it. Again, it can't be fixed by just speech therapy. And so, I don't know, the picture here kind of, oops, oh, all right, forget about the picture. So when Kate was really young, as I said, we had, the normal speech pathology or speech in school. It was just randomly that we would have some things. She had her crisis in 2013. At the end of the school year in 2018 is really where our journey began, and ultimately had a pharyngeal flap surgery in between February and March of 2019. It was a long road. It seemed like it took forever to come from the diagnosis to actually getting the story done. And again, this is really shortly after our diagnosis, and not a lot known about TANGO2. So, we were lucky in Rochester. The physicians that we saw in Rochester really listened to us. Well, most of them. The geneticists, not so much. But everybody else did. I'm pretty sure that the electrophysiologist actually spoke to Dr. Mayaki in preparation for the surgery. And there was things that I didn't even think about when we were going to be going through the surgery. We had to go to a sleep study. Sleep. But it made sense. They were like, oh, it's because we want to make sure she doesn't have any sleep apnea today. Because if we insert this speed bump in her throat, we don't want to make it worse. So yes, she and I had to do a sleep study together. Sleeping on a plastic couch was a lot of fun. But anyways, the first step was going to see the ENT. One visit to him, they basically put numbing spray into her nasal passage, put a scope down there, and we watched as they had her say words. And you could actually see that it did not close all the way. So next step was to a plastic surgeon. He explained to us what he would do, and then we talked a little about TANGO2 and all of that. And we had to go through the steps of doing the speech study, seeing the geneticist. The plastic surgeon actually had a speech person that worked with them, that kind of talked to us about, this isn't the end. You're going to have the surgery, and she's going to have to relearn basically how to talk. Because when you have VPI, you compensate. What I found out is you compensate for things. So because air was escaping, people were having trouble hearing her, understanding her, she would speak softly because naturally it she's trying to compensate for that. And there's other strategies that she worked with Kate with. We had to speak to the anesthesiologist. And of course, with TANGO2, at the time we had heard at the first TANGO2 conference that anesthesia could be an issue. So with the electrophysiologist and anesthesia, they came up with a plan for us together. And once we all felt comfortable with it, we moved forward. So the surgery, it's usually a 1 to 2 night stay. We were in for 4 nights, 4 days. I forget, something like that. They admitted Kate the night before into the cardiac PICU. so that they could monitor her, make sure that she was not fasting, had IVs in her, etc. And she was scheduled for the first surgery of the morning. We did have a little scare there. We scared the cardiology people up on the floor. Kate got out of bed for the first time since a day and a half, and she was like, they're like, but she was fine. And they wouldn't release us until she could sustain being able to swallow or eat. So you can see there's before surgery and obviously after surgery. And probably a lot of the same protocols for tonsil surgery. You know, they sent us home on a liquid diet. They discharged us with script for oxy, liquid ibuprofen. We actually didn't ever have to use the oxy. Kate did really well with her ibuprofen. We had to follow up with the plastic surgeon a week later, follow up with the speech specialist through their office, and then we had to do another sleep study after she healed. And obviously with her diet, they gradually increased it to soft and then solid foods. So, you know, when I said that we had to see a lot of physicians and I wasn't necessarily pleased with them, we did. We met with the geneticist and he said he wouldn't do it. And we said, well, what's the downside? You know, he's like, it's just going to come back. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Stan and I made a decision. We're moving forward. We think this is the best thing for Kate. And so we did. So I'm happy we did it. We're happy we did it. For those of you that met Kate at the first TANGO2 conference, I'm pretty sure you can see the difference between her speech then and today. Her confidence has grown tremendously. If you haven't met her already, she's very social, likes to be around people, likes to talk and everything. So it really has made a huge difference for her. She hasn't gotten speech support probably until the year after she had surgery. So most of her high school career, she did not receive speech services in school. You know, and you know your kids. You know your kids best. You're here. You're the only ones. You're the best people for their best interests. So, you know, you need to feel comfortable with what you're doing, the physicians that you're working with. I do have a poster in the poster room. So if you have any questions, my email and my phone number. If you send me an email, text me too, because I'll probably miss the email. So that's our story. Here's some pictures of Kate. DJ, she recently graduated from the program that she was at Nazareth University in Rochester, and some of her favorite things. Thank you. So I get the privilege of introducing Kasha. I'm sure all of you know her, but Kasha is the mother of Ryan, a TANGO2 warrior, and she's a co-founder and secretary for the TANGO2 Research Foundation. She serves on the foundation's research committee and plays a leading role in family engagement and community support initiatives. Through her advocacy, Kasha works to bridge the gap between scientific research and the everyday experience of families affected by TANGO2 Deficiency Disorder, helping to advocate awareness, collaboration, and hope for the global TDD community. Welcome, Kasha.
Where'd that clicker go? Any idea?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to end this amazing panel. You've heard so many great things, resources, experiences, journeys, which is great because our TDD warriors are all so different. And so we could use anything along that journey. I wanted to share a couple of quick stories about Ryan and a couple of other TANGO2 warriors with you that just kind of inspire some hope on this topic. On the video on the left, Christina shared earlier is a great example of dysarthria, where the struggle of Ryan's mouth to speak, that definitely impairs his ability to communicate. I'm not sure what to press to get it to play. To play the video? Oop, that's not right. There we go. Oh, someone else did it.
Guys, you can do it. Don't give up. And always want you to do your best.
So you can really see the struggle in his mouth there. Now, this next one is, I did a couple of weeks ago, and I actually put the medals on his neck. I wrote exactly what he said in 2020, because the first one was 2020. On index cards, I wrote exactly what he said back in 2020, and I had him read them. Now, the fact that he could read them in itself is hopeful and amazing, but you don't see the struggle in his mouth anymore.
The part that makes me the happiest is cheering for my teammates and saying, let's go team. You can do it. Don't give up.
So a nice before and after, and if you can see on the screen there, in 2020, Ryan was on 100 milligrams of B5 at that time. Still really struggling. He was in the midst of puberty, approaching 6 feet tall, and a lot of energy demands going on. 2026, he's now in 750 milligrams. I think he just wasn't on a high enough dose. But now that he is, we really saw some improvement in the speech. And I have a couple of other stories of some of our other TANGO2 warriors that, again, inspire hope, because sometimes the improvement is not a big milestone. You know, I've heard it say before, especially in rare disease, sometimes the milestones are inch stones, and they still should be celebrated and are quite incredible. Oh, I forgot about this one. This is just an AI plug. Ryan struggled with the L sound in particular. Alexa did a lot to change that. He was highly motivated to interact with Alexa, and boy, did he raise his tongue to do that L sound. He has it down. And it opened up his world. And now he uses a Gemini AI app, which his world has exploded because his voice is clear enough that it can understand him, and then it verbally responds to him, because he doesn't read and write well at all. But he can interact with the world. So we're on vacation, and in this video, he's asking AI to tell him about sharks. And at the end, he's kind of telling a joke, and it still understands him, even though he's laughing.
When do sharks usually come out for feeding time?
Sharks usually come out to feed at dawn or dusk. That's when their prey is most active, and they have the best chance of catching something.
Should a shark bite my dad's ankles?
Oh, I did. Shark bites on ankles are rare, but they can happen. It's usually a case of mistaken identity, like when a shark bites a person's foot.
So I love that AI just goes with his sense of humor, too.
Stay out of the water at dawn and dusk. Sharks are most active.
Now this is another inspiring story. This little one, Aislinn, is a TANGO2 warrior. As an infant, she had a severe metabolic crisis that left her with very, very limited mobility. But she's making those inch stones. She's making that progress. She's learning to communicate in her own way. So the first video, she uses her head to activate a switch that helps her get a toy to move again. And you can hear the joy in her mom, that how big of a moment this was. And in the next one, she uses a switch with her hand to communicate.
Sat on a speckled log, eating the most delicious bugs. Yum, yum. Play.
Oh, goodness. Can you hit play? Good job!
I jumped into the pool.
So these are moments to be celebrated too. And this guy you've probably seen over the last couple of days. This is another great story of the resilience in our kids. This is Connor, who a year ago was in a life-threatening metabolic crisis. He lost his ability to walk, to communicate. His life was saved thanks to the team and the TANGO2 hotline. We heard the story about Dr. Tisma reaching out. And so this video shows Connor that, yes, indeed, he's learning, he's regaining his ability to communicate using sign language.
More. Remember, more. How do you say more? Say I want. Please. So good.
So all those stories and all the examples that we've heard today just kind of communicate that message of hope in our community. So thank you.